Loje Jimni Jinje Nita Namda Rapsewe Chinye Denkun Jishin Sichin Yiki Kalek Bamsien Kantak Sibetsen Rarmarik Mentom Dongir Gisir Shwe Chotsok en La Pochi Tatse Lag Chuk Ju Yanten Sung Chuk Da Che Chok Nyamon Yilong Leki Chak Chok Jetsi Ching Majik Mense Dungen Yoko Chinye Chetse Rajinam Denne Da Ching Sachu Tarsen Yenten Litso Kiese To Weku Chu Chak Chu Dan Chu Ni Genche Dale Mense Jambe Yan La Tu Tseden Keki Kenara Peser Kie Dale Timok Men Pa Rapsen Gatan Tenche Jong Luk Dok Pa Ye Loje Pope Non Wa Tse Tu So.
We will continue our studies where we left off. At the end of the session, we decided to leave a bit more time for question and answer since we haven't had much so far. We'll try to leave about 15 minutes at the end. Yesterday, the first main part of the text, point 1.1, the nature of governing faculty. And we began the second main part, 1.2. The main point of the chapter. Second main point of the chapter, mode of birth of conditioned phenomena. Within this point, we've covered the first subsection, the mode of birth of material phenomena. Which included subsections concerning birth endowed with 8, 9, or 10 substances. And we started the second subsection of this second main part of the chapter. So the second subsection here is the mode of birth of immaterial phenomena. Yesterday, Sylvain presented the concise presentation concerning the mode of birth of immaterial phenomena. And we began the detailed explanation, notably the detailed explanation of phenomena that are associated by similarity with mind. We covered the concise presentation concerning this detailed explanation of phenomena that are associated by similarity with mind, which introduced the 5 great bases of sovereign mind, where the text stated in stanza 23, lines 3 and 4, mental events are of 5 types, because the great basis of sovereign mind and the other great bases are distinct. Now that we have commented on this concise presentation, we'll enter into the detailed explanation, which is itself subdivided into 4 parts, which begins with the classification of the 5 great bases. That's what we'll begin with today, and which will take a certain amount of time. And then following that comes the next subsection, which is what mental events are present around which sovereign mind. Mental events. And then further still, we'll reach the third subsection of this part, which is the differences between resembling mental events. And following that, the fourth subsection, presentation of names. So now we will begin with the first subsection here, which is the classification of the 5 great bases. They'll be presented one after the other, thus there are 5 subsections to the section. We'll begin with the first, which is the great basis of sovereign mind. Base. I gotta update the translation. And then comes the great basis of virtuous sovereign mind, then the great basis of sovereign mind marked by afflictive obscurations, the great basis of non-virtuous sovereign mind, and last, the great basis of sovereign mind marked by minor and related afflictive obscurations. We'll begin thus with the first, the great basis of sovereign mind. So here we'll look at the 10 mental events that make up the great basis for all sovereign mind that accompany every sovereign mind, whatever type it may be. So now we'll talk about these 10 mental events that are always present, that accompany every sovereign mind. Here, Khelzang Puntso clarifies, concerning sovereign mind, there are not various aspects or properties of sovereign mind. In other words, it's not white, it's not red, it's not blue, it's not a color, it doesn't have any specific appearance or aspect. The only thing that characterizes it is its nature. Its nature is clarity. The nature of sovereign mind is clarity. Khelzang Puntso adds, it is like a clean mirror. So that was a short precision point of clarification concerning sovereign mind. Now we'll look at the description of the 10 mental events that accompany every sovereign mind. In other words, the 10 mental events that are around every sovereign mind. Stanza 24, which reads, sensation, impulse, distinction, aspiration, contact, discernment, remembrance, attention, conviction, and concentration are present around all sovereign minds, or every sovereign mind. There are footnotes with alternative translations as well. You may be more used to certain translations from studying the entry to Path of a Pandita. The first mental event is sensation, tsorwa in Tibetan. Sensation corresponds to what is experienced. Sensation is what is experienced. As we learned previously, sensations can be divided into 3. We've also looked at a categorization in 5, but in this case and in certain categorizations, 3. Pleasant sensation, unpleasant sensation, and neutral sensation. They can also be divided into 6 categories in terms of birth from contact with the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, or mental faculty. That's a division into 6 categories. Based on birth from contact with each of the faculties. The function of sensation is to allow for the deployment of or unfolding of desire, attachment, and the other afflictive obscurations. As an aside, for most of the mental events that we'll look at, the definition is given in the beginning and the function is given towards the end of the explanation. So that was concerning sensation, the first of the 10. The second mental event is impulse, sempa. To define impulse, we can begin with the fact that there are 3 types of action: actions of body, actions of speech, and actions of mind. These are the 3 types of action that exist. Among these 3, impulse corresponds to mental actions. When we talk about mental acts or the actions of mind in the Abhidharmakosha, this refers to impulse. Based on this mental event, impulse, actions of body and speech are carried out. This is developed in great detail in chapter 4. And Khelzang Puntso said here that actions of mind are also carried out based on impulse, This doesn't completely correspond to what's said in chapter 4, but we listened, and that's indeed what Khelzang Puntso said, so just letting you know how it was stated. What does impulse do? It does not allow sovereign mind to be motionless, to be clear like a mirror, as it is. Rather, it makes it go in a virtuous or non-virtuous direction. Okay. Okay. There's no undefined in this context. It just talks about the fact that impulse makes the mind go in a virtuous or non-virtuous direction. If you have questions, please wait so that we can use the microphone, because there are people following online. Yeah, it was an impulse. Which led to an act of speech, indeed. The third mental event in this list is distinction, tu she in Tibetan. Its essence is defining the characteristics of objects individually without mixing them. That's the definition of distinction. It defines the characteristics of objects individually without mixing them. Its function is establishing conventional designations. The function of distinction is establishing conventional designations, such as this is a vase or this is a bowl. This is what is meant by designating things, attributing conventional designations. That is its function. This is what we found concerning distinction, what we have. Next comes aspiration, tunpa. Aspiration is the desire or aspiration to obtain something, to do something. It is the desire or aspiration to do something or obtain something. For example, we see a famous person and find that they have certain qualities, and we think, oh, I like that. And then we say to ourselves, that we would also like to attain these qualities. This thought, the desire to obtain the same qualities, is aspiration. It is the desire to obtain the same qualities. The function of aspiration is to give rise to enthusiastic effort, which we'll get to in the great basis of virtuous mind. And that was aspiration. Now comes the fifth mental event, contact, rekpa in Tibetan. Contact doesn't mean touching. In this case, we're talking about a mental event, not a material phenomenon. It's a mental event. When we talk about this mental event, contact, we are talking about the meeting of three things: the object, the faculty, and the consciousness. The meeting of object, faculty, and consciousness. When consciousness enters into contact with objects, this is either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. What does contact allow for? It allows the consciousnesses to enter into contact with objects and to determine exactly if the object is pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Contact allows the consciousnesses to do this, to enter into contact with objects and to determine in an exact way if the object is pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. The function of contact is being the support for the appearance of sensations. The function of contact is being the support for the appearance of sensations. That's contact. Now we come to the sixth mental event in this group, discernment. In the Abhidharmakosha, the term used here is l'autre, but in fact this refers to another Tibetan term, which is Sherab. This is discernment. The essence of discernment is discerning the mode of being of things. Discerning the mode of being of things according to general characteristics and particular characteristics. This is the meaning of discernment, the essence of discernment. Discerning the mode of being of things according to general characteristics and particular characteristics. Here, Khelzang Puntso cites distinction and explains, for example, the mental event distinction is what investigates things and defines a nominal characteristic of things. As we saw earlier, this is what defines the characteristics of an object and attributes a designation to them, like this is a flower, this is a vase. He continues, for example, certain schools discern that such and such phenomena is permanent. Buddhists discern that things are impermanent. The conclusions established on the basis of reasoning are called sherab, discernment. A short aside, maybe he was talking about discernment in order to distinguish between these two. Maybe he cited as distinctions in order to distinguish these two. In any case, discernment refers to the established conclusions. Not all discernment is necessarily correct. Discernment is not necessarily appropriate understanding of the nature of things. For example, non-Buddhists believe in a self. This view, this established conclusion, is a discernment, though it is mistaken discernment. This mistaken discernment is based on analysis. Consider the example of a pillar. In certain non-Buddhist schools, the pillar is seen as permanent. They've come to the conclusion, they have discerned that the pillar is permanent. How did they discern this? How did they conclude this? They did so by eliminating doubts concerning the impermanence of this pillar. However, Buddhists have likewise analyzed the pillar and came to the conclusion that the pillar is impermanent. They have eliminated doubts concerning the permanence of the pillar. In both cases, discernment eliminated doubts. The function of discernment is eliminating doubts. Whether to reach a valid or mistaken conclusion. That was discernment. Now we come to the seventh mental event of the great basis of sovereign mind. The seventh is remembrance, Chenpa. The essence of remembrance is not forgetting the object we are focused on. This is the essence of remembrance, not forgetting the object we are focused on. There are two types of remembrance. Remembrance associated with afflictive obscurations, and remembrance dissociated from afflictive obscurations. Khelzang Puntso said, for example, we'll talk about distraction later on. When mind is distracted by different outer objects and focus goes from one object to another. This distraction is what is called remembrance associated with afflictive obscurations. Distraction is remembrance associated with afflictive obscurations. Concerning remembrance dissociated from afflictive obscurations, this is not forgetting the focal point that we are focused on during meditation. This is remembrance dissociated from afflictive obscurations. This remembrance, dissociated from afflictive obscurations, is associated with a state of clarity in the mind. So here Khelzang Puntso gives an example for each of the two types of remembrance. Consider an example of distraction, like in Indian movies. For example, the hero sees the heroine and then he's always thinking about her. And his friends can't get his attention away from her. This is remembrance associated with afflictive obscurations, in other words, distraction. Concerning remembrance dissociated from afflictive obscurations, for example, when we meditate on the breath, we are very aware. We don't forget the object that we're focused on, in this case, the breath. We are aware of the breath entering and the breath leaving. We know, without any mistake, how many breaths we have taken. This is remembrance dissociated from afflictive obscurations. The function of remembrance is allowing mind not to stray from its object of focus, not to go toward other objects. The function of remembrance is allowing the mind not to stray from its object of focus, not to go toward other objects. We'll continue with the 8th mental event. Out of the 10 mental events that make up the great basis of sovereign mind, the great basis of all sovereign mind. The translations have changed a little recently. So here we come to the 8th mental event in this list. Attention, Yila Jipa. Yila Jipa. Attention is the direction that mind takes. It is the mental event that makes consciousness direct itself or focus on an object, like a vase or a pillar. Attention is the direction that mind goes in. The fact that consciousness goes toward an object, focuses on an object. There are 2 types of attention. Correct attention, or authentic attention, and incorrect attention, or inauthentic attention. If attention is associated with afflictive obscurations, it is incorrect or inauthentic attention. If attention is not associated with afflictive obscurations, it is correct or authentic attention. The function of attention is allowing focus on one point, concentration. Attention is what allows for generating meditative absorption, samadhi. That was the 8th mental event in this group concerning the great basis of all sovereign minds. The 9th is conviction, mupa. Conviction is being convinced, being certain, not mentally moving concerning a particular thing. For example, if we perceive qualities of a person or thing, if this conviction is present, then we won't mentally move concerning our perception of these qualities. We won't mentally move in terms of the fact that we attribute these qualities to this person or thing. It is a mental event that thinks, that's how it is. It's like this. To understand better, we can consider an example. For example, we will feel conviction, experience conviction in regard to our Lama, in regard to Shama Rinpoché, Karmapa, and the authentic masters who are endowed with true qualities. We'll see that they have qualities that are worthy of the state of Buddhahood. And then we'll think, oh, they're like a Buddha. And once this has been established, then nothing can make us change our minds about this subject. We see that they have the qualities and we are convinced. The fact that there is conviction, that mind is unshakable in terms of this conviction, this is what we call this mental event, conviction. Conviction isn't simply a belief. It is a mental event that makes it so that we will not change our mind. For example, we think, my master is like Buddha, and nothing can make us change our perspective on this subject, because this conviction is founded on reasons. For example, in the context of the relationship of a master and disciple in the Vajrayana, a disciple must be endowed with this conviction in regards to their Lama. In the Vajrayana, if this conviction is not present between master and disciple, then realization and qualities will not be able to manifest. This is why this mental event is very important, especially in the context of a relationship between master and disciple in the Vajrayana. The function of conviction is that there is no interruption. If we consider the example of the relationship between a lama and his disciple, this is what allows for no obstacles coming to hinder the link or relationship between these two. Everyone doing okay? So now we come to the 10th and final mental event that is part of this group that makes up the great basis for every sovereign mind. The 10th mental event is concentration, tingedzin. Concentration is the fact that mind remains on one point, on its object. The function of concentration is serving as the support for discernment arising from meditation. Concentration is the fact that mind abides on one point, on its object. The function of concentration is serving as the support for discernment arising from meditation. For example, if we wish to realize the true mode of being of phenomena, or the absence of self, if we wish to realize this, discernment arising from meditation is necessary. Without concentration, meditative absorption or samadhi, without this concentration, discernment arising from meditation cannot appear. Everyone all right? So concerning everything that was just presented, these 10 mental events, it's what was cited in stanza 24, and at the end of stanza 24, it's written that these 10 mental events are present around every sovereign mind. This means that these 10 mental events are present regardless of the sovereign mind. They're present for every sovereign mind. We've just concluded the first subpart concerning the first great basis of the 5 great bases of sovereign mind. This was the presentation of the 10 mental events that accompany every sovereign mind. The second subsection here is the great basis of virtuous sovereign mind. So what we'll look at here are 10 mental events that make up the great basis of virtuous mind. In other words, these 10 mental events that we will look at here accompany every virtuous sovereign mind. We find this in stanza 25, which reads, confidence, attentive care, flexibility, equanimity, respect, consideration, the two roots of virtue, non-violence, and enthusiastic effort are always present around a virtuous sovereign mind. We'll look at the first of these 10 mental events that accompany every virtuous sovereign mind. The first is confidence, Depa in Tibetan. Confidence or trust. The essence of confidence is that the mind is free of impurities. In other words, it is free of afflictive obscurations. This is the essence of confidence. Khelzang Puntso gives an example. If we put a washing substance in dirty water, the water becomes clean, clear. The same is true for confidence. If confidence takes place in our mind is free from impurities, from the impurities that are the afflictive obscurations, and there is lucidity, esteem, or clarity concerning something. Thus, confidence is this clear and luminous state of mind, free from obscurations, and that is very pure. For example, in relation to master or lama. Khelzang Puntso went into more detail concerning this presentation of confidence. The Buddha said that one who wishes to actualize all the qualities needs one thing: confidence. The Buddha said that confidence is the root of all the qualities. Thus, for one who commits to the path, for a Dharma practitioner, it is important to develop this confidence concerning the Master's qualities, to generate this purity of mind where that all qualities can arise from. In this way, confidence is the root of all qualities, literally white qualities. Then Khelzang Puntso gave an example. In the treatise known as the Abhisamaya Alankara by Maitreya, we find this example, which is there are 3 containers filled with water. The first has dirty water. The second is nearly clean. And in the third, the water is completely clean. At night, the moon shines, and when the moon shines at night, it will be reflected the best in the third container. This is an analogy that allows to illustrate what confidence is. The clarity produced in the mind by the presence of confidence. Lucidity. If we don't have confidence, the qualities of the path won't be able to be reflected in our minds. That was the section that presents confidence. And at the end we find the function. What it allows, what it produces. The function of confidence is serving as a support for the appearance of aspiration, tunpa. Confidence produces aspiration. In the great, which we talked about in the great basis of all sovereign mind. It was the fourth mental event. And now we come to the second mental event, attentive care, pa kyu, in Tibetan. Attentive care is turning away from harmful actions. Attentive care is distancing oneself from non-virtuous actions and becoming accustomed to virtuous actions. Here Khelzang Puntso says, it is necessary to become accustomed to the law of causality, to reflect on it, and then to practice virtue, and of course abandon non-virtue. He adds, attentive care allows to become accustomed to the virtues that are associated with factors for descent. Meaning getting used to the virtues that are associated with afflictive obscurations. Yes. Next, it allows for becoming accustomed to the virtues of the paths of accumulation and junction. And last, it allows for becoming accustomed to virtues dissociated from factors for descent. Attentive care allows for becoming accustomed to virtues associated with factors for descent, to become accustomed to virtues of the paths of accumulation and jealousy, and lastly, to become accustomed to virtues dissociated from factors for descent. It's not explained in detail here, but before being able to practice virtue on the path of accumulation and the path of junction, or the paths that are dissociated from factors for descent, we begin with something that is associated with factors for descent. This doesn't prevent there being attentive care or training in virtue or training in abandoning non-virtue. This is how I understand it in any case. So the first of this list is that attentive care allows for becoming accustomed to virtues associated with factors for descent. The second point is attentive care allows for becoming accustomed to the virtues of the path of accumulation and junction. And attentive care, third point, allows for becoming accustomed to virtues dissociated from factors for descent.
Donc voilà en quoi consiste le soin attentif. Et sa fonction, eh bien, c'est
The function of attentive care is eliminating all flaws and actualizing all the qualities.
Et juste une petite remarque,
A short personal remark. We can see that there are 3 steps here. Virtues associated with factors for descent, virtues of the paths of accumulation and junction, and virtues dissociated from factors for descent. So we can see that there are different flaws that need to be eliminated between each of these steps. So there is a progression. That covers attentive care. We'll go over one last mental event before having our question and answer. So the next mental event here is flexibility, the third of the great basis of virtuous mind. In Tibetan, this is Shintu Changwa. Flexibility is a mental event. When this flexibility is present, body and mind are very active. We'll clarify what active means. For example, when we meditate, we can remain for as long as we wish, meaning the body can stay sitting for a long time without pain, and mind is not lazy. Body and mind do not experience difficulty, they are active. This is when flexibility is present. Through training, we attain this mental event. This pliancy or flexibility arising from intensive training, which allows the body and mind to be active. Thanks to flexibility, when we engage in virtue with body and mind, both can engage as long as they wish, as long as necessary. Thanks to this flexibility, we can attain the essence of concentration. We talked about body and mind. There are 2 flexibilities: flexibility of body and flexibility of mind. In both cases, we're talking about a mental event. Flexibility of body is the mental event that is in the entourage of the sense consciousnesses. It allows for making the body active. in the entourage of the sense consciousnesses. It makes the body active. Flexibility of mind is in the entourage of mental consciousness and allows for making mind active. The function of flexibility is eliminating all obstructions of body and mind. The function of flexibility is eliminating all the obstructions of body and mind. If we look more closely at the obstructions of body, this is all of the sensations of heaviness, painful physical sensations, or the sensation of torpor after a big meal. When we possess flexibility of the body, these factors for discomfort disappear. We feel light. We remain pliant and flexible. The flexibility of the body allows for eliminating laziness and torpor. We'll get to laziness later, and we'll see that there is a type of laziness that is associated with big meals. So we'll conclude our presentation here, and if you have questions, go ahead. Concerning confidence, it is said, the Buddha said, confidence is the root of all qualities, good qualities, white qualities. We didn't add it. Khelzang Puntso stated this. He talked about white qualities, if I understood correctly, which we can translate as good qualities. I didn't know the term. It's true that we don't encounter it often. In the 4th chapter, there's also a section on white actions. Certain virtuous actions are titled white actions. We'll see this in the 4th chapter. Occasionally, we encounter this term as a reference to what is good or virtuous. Two questions. The first, did you say it? Maybe I didn't understand. Did you explain the virtues associated with factors for descent? Which virtues are these? Virtues dissociated from factors for descent, I understand. What I understand is that so long as we have not abandoned afflictive obscurations, factors for descent, we can nevertheless practice virtue. But this virtue will be associated with afflictive obscurations, with factors for descent. virtue dissociated from factors for descent can only be practiced starting from the path of seeing, because it is only at this point that we attain phenomena dissociated from factors for descent. And the second question, maybe somebody already asked this, I'm not sure. Multiple occasions you talked about or used the word mental, talking about mind. In our language, when we talk about mental, we think about the brain, and the mind is something else, so that confuses me. We'll talk about this, and that'll be addressed in the final point that we think we might get to, in concerning the names, in stanza 34. Maybe we'll get to it on Sunday, if all goes well. Just wondering if there is an importance concerning the order of presentation. The order that you presented them in has an importance or not. Is there an idea behind this? I'm asking because importance? I mean, we present them in the order that they were presented by Khelzang Puntso. It's following the order of the text. There's no special logic. Somebody asked concerning the 10 mental events that accompany every sovereign mind. Is there a logic where one relies on the other or appear one after another? And the answer is no. They're all together. For every moment of consciousness, they're all present. That's why I was wondering if you had an idea, because I just remember this particular answer to that question. Can you clarify something concerning torpor? I would have thought that it's connected with eliminating what? There was something mentioned that it's related to eliminating obstructions of body and mind. I would have thought that torpor is related to mind, but it seemed to say both body and mind. Torpor comes up on a few occasions. We'll talk about it in the next mental event, equanimity, as well. It's cited in several contexts. In tomorrow's section, we'll talk about it in more detail. In relation to flexibility of body, not sure. We thought about this question. It's a little confusing. The thing is, flexibility is a mental event. It's not material. It's said that this flexibility linked to the body is in the entourage of sense consciousness. if we eat a copious meal and then we want to meditate after, the risk is that there may be torpor due to having eaten too much. And this can produce laziness due to having eaten too much. Even if we try to meditate, even if we make an effort, there's a chance that we'll fall asleep. But this flexibility, what we understood is that this flexibility of the body is that even if we've eaten too much, this won't be an obstacle for meditation. Sure, having eaten too much will have an effect, but it won't produce laziness and torpor. It won't interrupt our practice due to the presence of this flexibility. That's the conclusion that we came to. Is that clear? No? Still not. Sometimes it translates Jingwa, sometimes it translates Mukpa. There are also various terms in Tibetan, so in any case, there will be more information about torpor tomorrow. Concerning the part about discernment, it was said that the essence is discerning the mode of being of things according to general and particular characteristics. What does this term mode of being mean? We could replace mode of being with true nature, perhaps. Does that make it easier? Does that make it easier to grasp the true nature of a phenomenon, of a phenomena? Thank you. No more questions? Yes. So we just started the 10 in relation to virtuous sovereign mind. In the first 10, aren't there virtuous things? Aspiration? Attention? Conviction? Aren't those things virtuous? Why are they separate from the mental events of virtuous sovereign mind? What accompanies every virtuous sovereign mind is 100% virtuous, whereas what accompanies every sovereign mind can be virtuous or non-virtuous. Because they accompany every virtuous sovereign mind, they will accompany virtuous sovereign minds as well as non-virtuous sovereign minds, as well as undefined, etc. Whereas the mental events that are part of the great basis of virtuous sovereign mind are 100% virtuous. Have we defined what sovereign mind is? The word sovereign means like the one in charge. There is sovereign mind, who's a bit like the boss, and then the mental events that are a bit like the entourage, the followers, who follow the big boss. So we're not using the term principal or primary mind. Yeah, I mean, you just need to know it refers to the same thing. In the Khejuk, they're using principal or primary. In the context of the kosha, we have stuck with sovereign mind. So I'm just starting. I would have liked to have the definition for sovereign mind, but that's more or less begun. But this sovereign mind, can this mind be polluted? In the sense you said there are things around it that follow it. So can sovereign mind in essence be corrupted, polluted, impacted by everything we are looking at, virtuous, non-virtuous obscurations? Some exchange is happening without a microphone. First thing that we can say is that sovereign mind corresponds to the aggregate of consciousnesses. When we say sovereign mind, this refers to the aggregate of consciousnesses, the different types of consciousnesses. And it was also said that it has no properties, no various aspects. It's clarity, like a clean mirror. But all the explanations that we'll see here show that around every sovereign mind there will be 10 mental events that can be virtuous, non-virtuous, notably virtuous and non-virtuous. And from the moment that non-virtuous mental events are present, that will color everything else. We said, as we said, there can be discernment associated with afflictive obscurations or dissociated from afflictive obscurations. If there are afflictive obscurations, there can be non-virtue. But if there's virtue, then that will also color everything else. Maybe we can talk about contamination in that way. Sovereign mind takes on the substance of what surrounds it in a certain way. Is what I'm saying clear? Apparently not. Does that answer? Or not really? We'll continue to reflect then. Okay, we'll conclude here. See you tomorrow. Thank you.